Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to get started. Cesar, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for doing it.
Absolutely.
Welcome to Miami.
Thank you. It's been wonderful. I'd love to start off with a topic that's top of mind for everybody right now, which is the election. Both with the Florida primary coming up, and then Univision has a big event tomorrow with 3 of the candidates at this point.
The Republicans.
Doing, 3 Republican contenders, especially as things get heated with the Republican field. Talk to me a little bit about what you guys are doing tomorrow, the format, why you're doing it this way, and how the election plays into what's important in your programming strategy for 2012.
Sure. Well, thanks again, Melissa, for taking the time, and for everyone for joining us today. Look, just from a macro perspective, I think we all know this. We are, going through just such a fundamental demographic shift in our country, and Hispanics are driving that change, and that change is having cultural, economic, social, and really one of the big places it's going to have impact is on the political front, and political ramifications. And so, this 2012 election is obviously important to us as a country, but I think it's going to be fascinating to us from a Hispanic community perspective. I think in so many ways, everyone agrees from all parties that the Hispanic vote will literally be the swing vote. I think this is the first time that we have seen both parties, all candidates in those parties, really proactively recognize that Latinos are going to make a difference, I think on a national basis, but I think particularly when you look at the swing states that are going to decide these elections, the Floridas, the Nevadas, the New Mexicos, the Arizonas, and some of the other bigger states, Latinos are going to play a very, very big role. In Univision's case, being the leader and having the responsibility that we have here in the States, we have proactively gone after our coverage from a news and a political coverage perspective. We feel it's fundamental to what we do, and it's just part of our DNA. And so as part of that, tomorrow we are going to be hosting something we're very proud of. The first time that all the leading Republican presidential candidates in this election cycle will be focused and having a forum to speak to Latinos directly, but more specifically about the issues that matter most to Hispanics.
And among them, what are the top 3 things we should expect them to? Yeah,
so I think on the one hand, there are some of the top issues on Latinos' minds are just like the rest of the country. And I think economies and jobs is first and foremost on most people's minds. But I think our community also has a very, very big puts a lot of weight on the issue of education. And the opportunity to grow and develop themselves, and the issue specifically of education reform here in this country. I think second, clearly the issue of immigration reform is one that's also on Latinos' minds. But I think also from a foreign policy perspective, our region of Latin America sometimes does not probably get the attention that it merits in some of these bigger debates, and so clearly that's one area as well that we're going to focus on, and healthcare. I think that's an important issue in this election cycle. It'll be an important issue for us, and so tomorrow we'll be speaking with the leading presidential candidates.
So you have Gingrich.
We have Gingrich. We have Romney. Santorum is still in confirming, and Ron Paul has not confirmed yet. And so we have the 2 ones. I think this is fascinating because the Republican primary is going to occur on Tuesday. To have this in the state that probably is going to be swung by the Latino vote should be a great conversation. All the polls are showing that both of these candidates are either neck and neck, or one of them has pulled ahead. So it should make for a competitive night. Yesterday we also unveiled our new news set. And so we're very excited about that because we've refreshed not only the on-air look, but the technology that we're bringing to the Hispanic audience this year to cover this political elections. And I think it'll make a big difference as far as engaging our community.
So for the format tomorrow, well, first of all, what are the conversations like with the campaigns? Are you going to them? Are they coming to you? Are you sort of feeling like you need to convey the importance, or do they get the picture, sort of?
Sure. So Look, I think from a macro perspective, I mean, anyone who's in any business, whether it's on the private sector or certainly in public service or in politics, I think recognizes the impact that Hispanics can have. You know, having said that, I think similar to our core advertising business, sometimes, you know, there's still a little bit of a lag as far as understanding what are the things that drive this community or that move it. How do you best address and how do you best tap into speaking to Latinos? So I think we have those type of conversations. I think what I can tell you is...
It's been a little harder than you would have...
I think I can tell you this is, we're as far as the evolution of this, this is going much, much better. It's a much easier conversation. We're getting traction a lot sooner. I can tell you that
the last election.
4 years ago, we made history when we held this same type of event. For the first time ever, we had presidential primary debates, both for the Republican Party and for the Democratic Party, for the Hispanic community. Had never been done. You know, we thought that was going to be a layup, and you know, I don't think it's confidential to say it was, you know, long and detailed conversations with both political parties so that they understood why it was so important for them to speak directly on the specific issues. And this cycle, it has been a little bit simpler, but still, we still have work to go. And you know, I think we're going to see some of that in the next few days here in Florida, and obviously as we go to the other primaries in the other states.
So tomorrow's format, though, it's not a debate format, correct?
It is a forum. So we will have, you know, our big journalist, Jorge Ramos. Jorge is going to be interviewing probably in a similar type format like this, each of the candidates in 30-minute increments.
Okay. Why did you decide to do it that way as opposed to putting them next to each other and playing off of one another?
Oh, I think it was just simple scheduling and conflicting. You know, to us, our priority is to make sure that these candidates come and address our community on the issues that matter the most. You know, whether the format is they go back to back or whether they're, you know, one on top of each other. We've had a lot of debates, as you can imagine, in this election cycle, and I think this format actually is going to lend itself so we can actually dig in to the 5 or 6 issues that are really on people's minds.
Now, as you mentioned, it was long and detailed conversations, getting people involved last election. How has the campaign spending, how is that going for this election cycle relative to the last time around, especially given the super PAC money? Are you able to get some, get your share of that?
Sure. So, you know, one thing that's, you know, that again is not confidential information, the percent of Latino electorate versus the percent of ad expenditure, political expenditure, is not equal right now. We lag as far as how much political expenditure is being spent on Hispanic or Spanish language media outlets versus the amount of influence we have at the polls. The amount of electorate is going up. We also expect the amount of political spending to go up over a period of time. I think one of the good trends that we're seeing in this cycle is historically we have not seen much, if any, spend in the primary cycle of the election process focused on the Latino market. We've seen most of the expenditure in the general election. In this cycle, we've already begun to see a trickle and some expenditure in the primary process. You know, obviously we only have one primary, you know, on the Democratic side. You know, we're not seeing that. But that's very encouraging. And, you know, again, when you see where the Latino electorate is concentrated and what are the states that are going to be the real battleground states, we're cautiously optimistic that we will have a good year on that front.
Good. Let's talk more generally about news. And I know that's also a big push in this year with the news set and some other expansions that you've been launching as far as investigative news, cracked, and documentary news and doc. Talk to me a little bit about how you see your audience as far as what they're asking for, what they want out of news, and sort of why you're doing what you're doing in that area.
Sure. You know, I think in a lot of cases, you know, the overwhelming amount of Hispanics in this country are getting their news and information from Univision and many of our friends in the business. So, we believe that we have the responsibility not only to make sure that we're giving them objective and complete information on all the issues, but at the same time we need to continue to, slowly and in an economically feasible way, ramp up the quality of product and the diversity of product that we're offering to them. And so, two of the areas that we thought were underserved right now in our community, one was on the investigative front. We felt that we needed to do more investigative reporting on some of the issues that I think are uniquely relevant or that we have unique perspective on in our community. We've done, a recent investigation on the influence of Iran in Latin America. This documentary and investigation got a tremendous amount of traction, again, not only here in the Latino community, but also here in the overall U.S. Community. And so, I think it's an opportunity for our audience, but I think it's also an opportunity for us to be able to cross over and have the overall population understand the contributions that we can make to the journalistic discussions that are going on. And so, documentaries and investigative is one of the areas that we think is one of the places we can help continue to contribute and elevate the conversation.
So I have noticed, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like whether it's on Twitter or the streaming that you'll be doing with the Meet the Candidates event tomorrow, more English language content. Is that my imagination, or is that a strategy? Do you see that as part of your strategy to continue to broaden your audience and that crossover appeal?
Not a figment of your imagination.
Okay.
Yes, we're definitely doing some of it. I think this is one of the areas that probably has not received as much attention. We're doing a lot of things in English. We have been doing a variety of things and ramping up a little bit more and more over the years. One of the areas that we've been investing in and doing some work in on the English front is on the interactive side, and the example you gave is on the news NEWS side. Again, I think this is one of those areas that we have seen such an interest and demand, not only from our community, but also from the overall American population. They're interested in some of the issues and some of the perspectives, I should say, some of the perspectives from our community that we happen to cover more so just because they're near and dear and relevant to our hearts. And so, we have found that a way of literally translating some of that work has been to do our work in English as well. And we've seen tremendous success. We launched our English News Tumblr site a bunch of months back, and I can tell you the reaction has been incredible. We've had following from a social media perspective where we've tapped into audiences that before knew obviously what Univision was, but they did not really understand the perspective and some of the unique value adds that we had. And particularly when you take into account that everyone's reading the same census that we all read, that if you want growth in your business, the Hispanic community is where you're going to find growth. And so we found everyone from elected officials and politicians and influencers to corporate executives and the like, all are tapping in to try to get insights about our community through Univision's English language products.
Did you ever consider subtitling prime time in English?
Yeah, so I don't want the audience to think that I'm teeing you up on that one, but the answer is yes, and in fact we'll be announcing that tomorrow, that we'll be announcing closed captioning in English for our entire prime time, for all our novellas.
Great minds.
We're very excited about that. And we think it's going to, again, continue to help us to appeal to that audience beyond our core audience, because we all know, everyone certainly in this room who's in our industry knows what mass appeal we have beyond just the core Latino audience.
When will that start?
It will commence on next week with the premiere of our new novella, Talismán, at 8 p.m., and we'll be doing it for our entire novella primetime block.
Well, that's great. I'm looking forward to that because my Spanish is terrible. I'd like to watch. So speaking of launches coming up in the next week, Saturday you have a big one with Que Viva, The Chosen.
Yeah, yes? These two people, Jennifer Lopez and Mark Anthony. I hope they
punks.
do okay.
They just sit on their butts, they're never doing anything. huge launch for you guys, right? I mean, and this is part of a huge global launch. It'll be in multiple languages, and I think that show already is going to be subtitled, correct? I think as part of it around the world.
That show is going to have a little bit of English, a little bit of Spanish, and as you mentioned,
Portuguese, right? As well.
Correct.
Yep.
This is a show that's transcending borders and the like, and many of our partners, many of our friends throughout the region are also part of this. But I think what's interesting is. Simon and Jennifer and Mark, selected Univision here in the United States to, I think, bring a very unique, a very groundbreaking show here. And again, I think it speaks to the universal appeal that we as a community are going to have, and I think it'll be a real fun show. And I think a lot of people are interested these days how Jennifer and Mark are interacting, so it should be fun.
Well, I have to ask you, and I know in the first episode they're going to talk a little bit about their split, but I have to wonder what went through your mind when you have this big project coming up and this incredible power couple, and then you hear that they're splitting up in the midst of this show.
All I asked was, is it one private plane or two private planes? What's the impact going to be to them? No, look, they're both fantastic, and they're both incredible professionals and have huge followings, and so we have high hopes, and we're excited for it. So
last year on this stage, I asked Gerhard Zeiler, who runs RTL Group, what he thought X Factor was going to do, because it was before that show debuted. So I have to ask you, what are your expectations ratings-wise for your show on Saturday? What do you think it's going to do? Can you give a guess?
I probably wouldn't give specific expectations, but I can tell you, this has been part, I think, of a broader initiative for us of trying to find programming and genres that are going to freshen our screen and are going to appeal to a broad audience. And so I think that show would do it. We've had a show on the air called Dale con Ganas, which is a partnership with David Broom and Emilio Stefan from The Biggest Loser. And so this has been a show, this is The Biggest Loser applied to the Latino community. It's been extraordinarily well received. And I think it's doing a tremendous amount of public good. We've done a lot of work in the reality genre. As you may know, we have a wonderful co-production with our friends at Endemol called Mira Quien Baila, that we're now entering. We finished our second season, very successful season. And bringing those new genres, diversifying the type of programming is something that we're very excited about doing, and we're going to continue to innovate. We're going to continue to do it.
So you're not going to tell me, you're not going to Simon Cowell me 20 million? No?
Not tonight.
Well, let's talk about Saturdays a little bit.
Sure.
There was an interesting conversation up here yesterday. Paul Talejdi from NBC and John Sade from ABC and Mark Itkin from William Morris Endeavor about Saturday viewing habits in this country. And that there isn't really one in prime time in the general market speaking. Yes. But Univision has a tradition of programming Saturday nights, right? Do you see this as an opportunity perhaps to again look at the idea of crossing over, with general viewership in this country, English or Spanish or any language speaking viewers?
Sure.
What do you think about Saturdays and habits?
I'd make one comment, and I'll tell you my humble thoughts on Saturdays. Look, I think the one thing that's wonderful, and I think it's so important for our industry, is that we've evolved to a point that now, whenever people are talking about ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox, they're talking about Univision in the same breath. And I think that's a success, not necessarily just for Univision, but I think for our industry, that we've come of age and we've evolved. And so I think it's wonderful that the industry is looking at what, we look at what works in other parts of the industry, but now they're also looking at what has worked for us historically. And so that we've arrived, I think, is important. On Saturday specifically, as many people know, we do have a program, a genre that has worked well. Sábado Gigante this year will be celebrating the astonishing,
1,000th year. Oh, just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. No, actually, you're not that far off. And Don Francisco is an incredible human being. He's got more energy at his young age than I do, and God bless him. And he has been extraordinarily successful. And what we love about it, it's not only its consistency, but it's a format that is family friendly. Yeah. It's a variety. format that allows us to be very flexible, and it's got universal appeal. It's not only been successful here in the United States, but in countries around the world. And so I think this is one of the places where we Univision have shown, and we, our industry, have shown that we can lead and we can innovate. You know, one of the things I always say, he was one of the groundbreakers when it came to working with advertisers, working with products and the like. And so I think it's an area that absolutely can be learned and grown.
Let's go back to your point about Univision and its place in the TV landscape and
Sure.
the conversations when we're talking about the traditional Big Four. It is obviously is a different business targeting two different language speaking viewerships. Where do you feel that conversation needs to go for your business in the year ahead with advertisers, with viewers? You know, yes, we talk because the numbers speak volumes. You know, I get the ratings releases and I see, you know, there are nights, absolutely, Univision has more people watching programs than some of the Big Four at times. But I go back to, you know, I guess the question of, you're also targeting different advertisement and different marketers, you know, different commercials because they're going to be in different languages. So walk me through a little bit more of the conversations that you're having, where you'd like to see them go,
Sure.
how you'd like to see perceptions evolve.
Sure. Well, look, there's maybe I'll pick up on that. You know, there are sometimes some misperceptions, and I think, you know, one of the places to start with is, you know, addressing those. And I think, you know, the first is, you know, is this the scale issue? I mean, people sometimes and entities sometimes don't realize, you know, that every single night Univision, you know, beats one of those networks. And that's across, you know, the larger demographic groups, adults 18 to 49. When you look at the younger demographics, adults 18 to 34, we're much stronger. In fact, in this past quarter, we were the second largest network in the country, adults 18 to 34, regardless of language. So I think scale is one big misperception. I think a second misperception is, to go to this last point, is that it's older people watching Spanish language media instead of younger. And in fact, it's completely the opposite. We skew much younger than many of the English language networks. We as a community, we as a culture, are much younger. And so I think that's an important you know, conversation to have. And I think the third misperception that we've been running into, particularly over the last year or two, is a lot of times people think of in our particular case, our company, they think of Univision as just one asset, just Univision, the network. Right. And in our case, we've evolved from the beginning of 2011, we'll have been 3 TV networks, Univision, Telefutura, and Galavisión. That's the beginning of 2011. At the end of 2012 this year, we'll be 12 networks. And we've evolved from, you know, obviously having the general interest, large platform, to now having very specific genres that target. And we recognize that is a very important conversation for our advertisers and for our partners. And so I think that misperception is one that addresses. And I'll tell you the last one, which is, I think, this issue that we run into, this misperception, which is this issue of language. And one of the things that's important to point out is, you know, we have a huge, as do many of us in the industry, we have huge pockets of bilinguals watching Univision and watching Spanish language TV. You know, one of the things I always try to stress, most of our audience, you don't get to the size of numbers we have without having people that are bilingual, big chunks of them. And so most of our audience is not watching because they have no other choice. They're watching because they're making the proactive decision because this is culturally relevant, high quality content that speaks to them and that they're choosing to watch. They can, of course, change the channel and watch something in English. And so I think that, you know, it's not necessarily a different audience. It's just a unique way of getting to a specific part, a specific consumer, in a way that emotionally connects with them probably in a better way, or engages with them in a better way than it may with other type of content.
So what do you want marketers to do, ideally, in 2012, differently, as part of these conversations?
Look, the honest and very direct conversations we have with marketers all the time is, we say, look, we give them the economic argument, you know.
Like, move your money from here to here?
Well, we don't pretend to tell them what they should do with their money, but we look at it from an economic and efficiency perspective. When you look at most of the businesses and organizations in this country, a lot of the war that they're having is, they're having attrition between their competitors. They're just fighting back and forth to try to get the exact same pool of customers. I'll give you the example of distributors or satellite companies or cable companies today in the United States. When it comes to non-Hispanic customers, cable and satellite are sort of fighting for these subscribers, right? But the net number probably stays more about the same. Mm-hmm. The penetration of cable and satellite subscribers in the Hispanic market is very, very low. And so the ability to offer them an opportunity to grow their business is something that, when you walk through that opportunity, is very, very attractive to them. And so all we're asking them to do is to invest their money in the areas that are going to give them the best ROI for those dollars spent. And once you actually spend the time and understand the ramifications of that, it is a very, very compelling case. Now, does that mean that they can just, on a dime, turn it and do it overnight? No, the answer is no, and we recognize that. They do have to be able to have some internal resources that understand the community. They also have to be able to produce advertising or the media in language or in culturally relevant manners. And so that's something that in many cases we work with them on that front. And we have so many case studies that has been so successful, and we hope to be able to replicate that. Instead of with 5, 10, or 20 people a year, we hope to be able to do 50 or 100 a year.
What do you make of Fox and RCN's big move this week to bring Spanish language programming to the U.S.?
Look, as we always say, we think it's great. I think competition is good for everyone. It helps us innovate. It helps all of us in the industry stay sharp and have better product. I think the second thing is it's another voice in the market talking about the opportunity and the growth in this community. And so, what's the saying? Good high tides rise all boats. Yeah. Or something like that. I think it's wonderful for everyone, and and also everyone in this industry, I think, is very welcoming and very used to competition. We have we're close to 100 now networks focused on the Hispanic community, and so competition is nothing new to none of us, and we're excited and we welcome it.
I have one more question, and then we're going to take a couple of questions from the audience. You have a new colleague. Last year, Randy Falco joined the company. How's that partnership going? How do you guys split things up? How has it changed your outlook?
Sure. Well, the way we split it up is he's the CEO and I'm not, so that's the easy way. But no, Randy is an incredible guy, an incredible executive. We're very fortunate to have someone like him. He has 30 plus years of experience in this direct business, and he brings just a set of values and a set of experiences that are invaluable to us, Univision, at this stage in our development. And on a personal level, we have very complementary skill sets. We've gotten along on a personal level incredibly well, and so we're lucky to have someone of his caliber here at Univision leading us.
Fantastic. We do have time for a question or two. Do we have any out here? We'll step to the mic in the middle. Bueller? Okay.
It's a shy group, or we answered everything?
I have more. Okay. Let's talk about what you learned in 2011 that you're applying to 2012. Were there any mistakes or triumphs that are informing what you're doing this year?
Yeah. Look, I think the big learning that we had is that the evolution from programming in a linear to a non-linear world is accelerating. Okay. And I think everyone sees this trend or has seen this trend coming, and I think for us, adjusting to that evolution or that accelerated evolution is probably one of the big learnings that we've had. And second, I think another evolution for us is again, just like I just articulated out of one side of my mouth that we want people to see us more than one network. We have 12 networks. We internally have to do that as well. And how we program, how we manage, that evolution is something that we're also working on. And it'll be one of our priorities for 2012.
What can Univision do better than any other brand or company?
Look, Univision has the privilege of having been in this market and serving our community for 50 plus years now, and you know, the Hispanic community is very loyal. We understand very well what are some of the unique needs that they have, and so something that we have focused on throughout our time is making sure that we weave in the social challenges that they have into the day-to-day work that we do. And so one of our primary areas of focus is the area of education. We know how that moves the needle for our community, and we're gonna continue to do it. And so I think that's one of the areas where we're able, because of our scale and because of the great people we have in front and behind the camera, that we're able to bring some value, and we're gonna continue to try to do it on that front.
Finally, what is just your absolute number one priority, goal, hope for the next 12 months? For the next 12 months, look, we want to see Univision really transcend. I think the breakthrough in the mindset of our partners, of the media, of everyone in the industry, that we have arrived, and that not only are we competing, but we are at the level of some of the large English language networks, and hopefully we're adding value with different and innovative ideas that's going to benefit everyone. And so that for us is really the big challenge, is to break through in sort of that clutter. That will be a big victory for us. Well, thank you so much for all of your insight today. Please join me in thanking Cesar Conde.
Thanks, Melissa. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.